The atmosphere in the hall was electric with anticipation as everyone awaited an important announcement. "Hasn't it started yet?" Gerasimov's voice boomed as he settled himself with a grunt into his chair, fearing he might miss something crucial. Besanov merely shook his head in response. Meanwhile, Gerasimov was already deep in conversation with Camilla, the accountant, who sat in front of him, likely discussing the overdue May bonus. It was April 30th, and the payment still hadn't been made. All 40 company employees, both factory and office staff, had gathered in the hall designated for meetings and corporate events. Employees had been called for an important announcement from management. However, CEO Kolosov was absent. On stage were Chief Accountant Svetlana Igorevna, First Deputy Shamil Renatovich, and Commercial Director Pavel Arkadyevich, all busy sorting through papers. "Is everyone ready? Shall we begin?" Shamil Renatovich asked. His high-pitched voice and fidgety demeanor contrasted sharply with his keen intellect and calculating nature. Despite appearances, he was a man capable of doing whatever it took to achieve his goals. Besanov couldn't shake the thoughts of him, harboring a deep antipathy. Sometimes we think more often of our adversaries than our friends, trying to understand the source of our dislike. "It's high time we started. The holidays are just around the corner, the day's short, and we're stifling in here," the cleaner declared loudly. Her lack of career ambition allowed her to speak her mind freely. Chief Accountant Svetlana Igorevna shot her a displeased look. "Let's begin." The deputy director cleared his throat and picked up a sheet of paper. "First of all, colleagues, I wish you all a happy upcoming holiday." Shamil Renatovich gestured to the chief accountant and the commercial director, who nodded in agreement with his greeting. Unfortunately, Pyotr Yuryevich is absent today. "Let's get straight to the point," Svetlana Igorevna interrupted. The May holidays were eagerly awaited. Shamil Renatovich grew nervous, the paper in his hands trembling. Sorrow clouded his face, as if it pained him to deliver the news he had to convey. Something particularly unpleasant, Besanov thought. "They'll cut the May bonus for sure," Gerasimov agreed. "Don't stir things up," Rozochka, the office manager, hissed. "Just listen," Gerasimov replied. "Dear friends, we rarely gather all together." Relations between the office and production departments were strained. Office employees looked down on the factory workers, who, in turn, called them the hot shop, implying they did little real work. Production staff occupied the back rows. By order of Pyotr Yuryevich Kolosov, I announce that a decision has been made to reduce the bonus percentage by 25%. Shamil Renatovich put the paper down. Silence fell over the hall. The assembly processed the news. The Presidium waited for a reaction. Each employee's earnings consisted of a base salary and bonuses. The base salary was minimal, and bonuses made up a significant portion of their income. A bonus cut meant a substantial reduction in wages. "Why the sudden change?" a voice from the back rows demanded. "It's not up to us," the chief accountant retorted. The silence was broken. Everyone began talking at once, discussing what they had heard. Amidst the general din, words like "mortgage," "for the holidays," and "they've gone too far" could be distinguished. "Well, this is just great," Sonia, the HR employee seated to Besanov's left, quipped, alluding to the unexpected turn of events. "What nonsense!" exclaimed Anna Vitalyevna, the technologist, shooting Besanov a scathing look, as if he were to blame for the whole situation. "Who exactly made this decision?" A booming question cut through the general noise. The question was unexpected, coming from Bessonov himself, a man usually quiet and inconspicuous. "What do you mean?" Svetlana Igorevna asked, adjusting her immaculate hairstyle. "Shamil Renatovich said the decision had already been made," Bessonov explained. "I'm just curious who exactly made it. I, for one, wasn't involved." "Yes, who was it?" Gerasimov chimed in, rising slightly from his seat. "Management," Svetlana Igorevna snapped. "But of course we must carefully consider and approve this decision," Shamil Renatovich hastily added, trying to smooth things over. "Oh, so first they rob us, and then we're supposed to approve it. What? Are they worse off without our approval? We're already living a fairy tale life. It's so sweet it makes your teeth ache." Gerasimov fumed. A buzz of voices rose in the hall again. It should be noted that the small enterprise where these events unfolded was called Sweets and specialized in the production of nougat, molasses, and caramel. It was no surprise that the factory's main slogan was, "We'll make your life sweeter." "Listen, are you the only one struggling?" the commercial director exclaimed. "It's getting harder to sell products. Finding buyers is a real problem. Losses. And you're talking about bonuses." A stir began among the production staff. A short, thin woman with a close-cropped haircut, tightly framing her head like a swimming cap, jumped up. "Then sell. Get moving. We're slaving away like crazy, and they can't even sell it. It's outrageous. Cut their salaries if they can't do their job. What does that have to do with us?" Despite her small stature, the woman's voice was powerful, bassy, and resonant. She spoke loudly, gesticulating wildly, as if about to take flight. All eyes involuntarily turned to the sales and marketing employees, Victor and Vitaly. They always stuck together and looked like twins, both thin, with prominent Adam's apples and glasses. To avoid confusion, they were simply nicknamed Vivi. Hearing the attack aimed at them, Vivi exchanged glances and went on the offensive. "Our phones never stop ringing. And what about our slogan? Thanks to it, sales have tripled. And when we launched the Sweets Hello campaign? Why? And anyway, what does hard to sell mean?" Sonia, the HR specialist, interjected. "Who reported growing volumes and growth percentages at the end of the year? We all heard it. Right in this very hall." "Exactly," the production staff echoed. "Right in this very hall. I wonder if management's salaries will be cut too, or if they'll compensate themselves from our bonuses," Alla Vitalyevna inquired. "Yes, exactly. They probably won't cut your pay." The production staff grumbled again. "But they dump all their complaints on us, the ordinary people." "Friends, esteemed colleagues," Shamil Renatovich felt the situation was getting out of hand and quickly intervened. "Everyone has worked excellently. Management has no complaints about anyone, but you see the general state of the economy under sanctions and recession, as well as tough competition in the sector. Purchasing power." He faltered, not knowing what to say, and looked helplessly at his colleagues on the presidium. "We need to be understanding," Svetlana Igorevna offered. "We've been understanding for a long time. Our whole lives we've been in this position. Our knees are aching," someone from the production department shouted. The argument continued for about half an hour. The conversation went in circles. Management tried unsuccessfully to parry the attacks from the floor. In the end, realizing the futility of the situation, they decided to retreat. Friends, we're all on edge right now. This is understandable and explicable. Shamil Renatovich rose from his seat, clutching the sheet of paper once more. Let's revisit this conversation after the holidays, when tempers have cooled down a bit. The three members of the Presidium hurried towards the exit. Pavel Arkadyevich, bringing up the rear, paused for a moment to shout, "But the decision has already been made, in any case. Keep that in mind," before disappearing behind the others. Silence fell over the hall. No one was in a hurry to leave. "Those bastards," Gerasimov muttered with relish. "To think they came up with something like this. And they said we had to agree," Rozochka justly observed. "I, for one, don't agree. Who in their right mind would agree to such a thing?" A cry came from the back rows. And once again, a daring, defiant feeling, demanding an outlet, stirred within Besanov. He rose from his seat and, overriding the other voices, declared, "If we allow them to treat us this way, they'll even make us pay to come to work, like in that joke. We can't let this happen. We've done our jobs honestly, and we deserve decent pay. Let them cut whatever they want for themselves." Vivi, still reeling from the recent tension, when they were almost blamed for everything, jumped up excitedly upon hearing this proposal. "What do you suggest?" one of the workers briefly asked, expecting a concrete plan of action. "I propose a strike," Besanov declared, full of resolve. "Just like Lenin, but without the armored car," the cleaner quipped, eliciting laughter in the hall. Besanov blushed slightly, but continued confidently. "Since they hinted at our consent, they must need our signatures for their report. Our task is not to sign those papers. That's the first thing. And the second is not to come to work after the holidays." Alla Vitalyevna gasped, imagining the consequences. "But how? They'll mark us absent." Besanov countered. "If no one shows up, they can't mark anyone absent. They can't fire everyone at once, can they? Who would work then? By the time they find new employees and train them, production will halt. If we unite and act together, they won't be able to do anything to us." The small woman, with the resonant voice, full of enthusiasm, jumped up again and waved her arms. "Yes, the guy's got a point. Together we are strong. We don't come in after May Day. We don't sign anything. They can't jail us all." These words ignited the hearts of those gathered. In the hall were descendants of those who forged victory in the Great Patriotic War. Besanov felt like a commander-in-chief leading an army to victory. People approached him, clapped him on the shoulder, expressing support. Workers shook his hand, and girls cast admiring glances. "You're amazing," Sonia praised. "I never expected such resolve from you." Gerasimov, without going into detail, declared, "Let them just try." It was clear he fully supported Besanov's idea. Vivi beamed with joy, as if they had already been promised a generous bonus. The May holidays, which lasted 4 days that year, became a time of true triumph for Besanov. In the first few days, his phone didn't stop ringing. Colleagues called, congratulated him, and expressed their readiness to collectively resist management's pressure. Besanov felt like a strike coordinator, the center of everyone's attention. For the first time in his life, he was doing something for the good of the collective, defending others' interests. He felt a sense of belonging to something big and important, experiencing not only pride, but also a newfound love for all these wonderful people who had spontaneously chosen him as their leader, listened to his opinion, and were ready to follow him. Perhaps a political career awaits me, Besanov wondered, imagining a future full of prospects and opportunities. By the last day of the holidays, the calls stopped. A tense silence settled. Bessanoff nervously paced back and forth, trying to calm himself. Tomorrow was the start of the workday, and with it, the strike. A decisive moment that would reveal the strength of their unity. His alarm didn't go off, but Bessanoff woke up at the appointed time. He was about to go to the bathroom to get ready for work, but suddenly stopped. He didn't have to go anywhere today. The day dragged on, hour by hour. Bessanoff constantly wanted to call his fellow strikers, but held back. A leader shouldn't show their fears and doubts, and his voice might betray his anxiety. At 1:30, the phone rang. A city number flashed on the screen. Sweets calling. Bessanoff's heart pounded wildly. They must have realized no one's coming in and started calling everyone, he thought, picking up the receiver and preparing to hear the voice of one of the company's executives. But he was mistaken. It was Rozochka. "Bessanoff, where are you?" she asked. "Where are you?" Bessanoff replied, confused, not understanding why Rozochka was at the office. "I'm here at my desk. They asked me to find out when you'd show up." Her voice had demanding undertones, but Bessanoff detected a tremor. Perhaps it was guilt. He remembered how cunning and sly Rozochka was, though very beautiful. "Who asked you to find out about me? Management? And why did you even come to work? We had an agreement." "I didn't agree to anything with you," the girl interrupted. "We yelled, let off some steam, and went our separate ways. You're the only fool still holding out." "What about me?" Bessanoff felt his throat go dry. Swallowing with difficulty, he asked, "Are you saying everyone came to work except me?" "Of course." Rozochka, apparently sensing the shock in his voice, took pity on him. Lowering her voice, she quickly said, "No one was looking for you this morning. Only now has Shamil Renatovich asked to find you. Mitch, I can say you're sick and won't be able to come in today." A bitter taste appeared in Bessanoff's mouth. He wanted to respond but couldn't. Hanging up, he thought for a second and dialed Gerasimov's number. "Hello?" Gerasimov answered. "You're at work then?" Bessanoff asked in a hoarse voice. Gerasimov cleared his throat. "Buddy, were you serious? It's one thing to shout at a meeting and another to lose your job. Where would I find work after that? Unemployment is high and I'm almost 40. Who's going to hire me without a degree?" "Scab," Bessanoff spat out. "I didn't call you names, by the way," Gerasimov huffed indignantly. Instead of a harsh accusation, an explanation of the term was implied. A scab, a traitor to the collective's ideals, someone who jeopardizes collective efforts by working during a strike and thus nullifies it. Gerasimov flared up in indignant response. "What? Am I the only one? It's surprising since everyone else came to work." A reasonable reply followed. "If everyone had acted conscientiously as planned, we would have achieved our goal." Gerasimov let out a groan, full of helplessness and disappointment, like the mournful howl of an old dog. "You're so naive, honestly. Who wouldn't have come in? Alla Vitalyevna, Sonia, Rozochka, the factory workers. They would have been the first to betray us. They lie at every turn." "How can you trust people like that?" Bessanoff countered. "Everyone came in because each person wrote off the others beforehand, deciding they would surely chicken out. That's why we're in this situation, everyone for themselves, while management, on the other hand, united against us." A wave of disgust for the entire situation and for the sickly sweet company, sweets, rose in Bessanoff's soul. He felt the utter absurdity of the situation. Realizing he was the biggest fool in the whole story, Besanov fell silent, lost in thought.
Gerasimov, softening, said in a conciliatory tone, "Come on, stop being silly, okay? The main thing is they didn't cut us entirely. And the bonus cut, well, at least we have that. The boss is always right, you know that. I heard they're promising a slight raise in the base salary. That's something." "That's something," Besanov echoed, not sharing his interlocutor's optimism. Gerasimov perked up. "Exactly. There's no fighting fate. We have to work. Loans, after all." Besanov, suddenly animated, interrupted him. "Wait, what about the signatures? They said we needed to collect signatures." He thought that not all was lost yet. Gerasimov replied, "Rozochka handed out the forms to everyone this morning. They were told to sign and submit them by the end of the workday. Some have already submitted them." "And you'll sign?" Besanov asked hopefully. "There you go again." Gerasimov seemed to lose patience. "What choice do I have? Are you playing innocent? Everything's already been decided without us, and a signature is just a mere formality. Listen, just drop all this and come to work." "I quit," Besanov said firmly, and ended the call. He hadn't intended to say it, but something inside compelled him to utter those words. And having said them, he realized he had done the right thing. He couldn't just go back to the office as if nothing had happened and pretend it was all fine. The phone rang again and kept ringing, relentlessly. Besanov looked at the number and turned off his phone. He walked to the window, watched the people rushing by on the street, and remembered his mother's words. "You always have to be the one to make a fuss. Everyone else is out of step, but you're in step." "That's just how I was born," he replied to his mother, who lived in a village near Kazan. "You can't change that." A lightness settled in Besanov's soul. He wasn't proud of his courage and principles, as he had been at the meeting.
Since then, he seemed to have grown wiser. He realized that even one person can be a warrior. Sometimes, someone has to be